Welcome back to the produce safety session, folks. Let's see. Let's fire up the chat box and see what, if anything, anybody would like to say about yesterday. 1 or 2 words, any surprises or new information or reflections from the conversation yesterday.
I'll say my big takeaway was the total confusion and lack of consistency over high tunnels, hoop structures, and floating road cover.
Fair enough. Thank you. Anything else?
We were told that FDA was going to be issuing a document soon by FDA.
I've heard that as well. Okay, any other?
Well, and it's not like we reached a consensus on the drop produce either, so.
Great, okay. Anybody else have any reflections or thoughts? Feel free to use the chat box. If you'd like to speak up, you are welcome to. Thanks, Leah. Yep, science needs for tricky areas. Absolutely. Great. Well, feel free to keep it coming on the chat box. It's good to know that other states and educators are going through the same challenges. That is very helpful. Thank you. Great. Elizabeth, you want to get us oriented to today's session?
Misery loves company. Thanks, Hob. I agree. Let me share my screen. Okay. So thank you, everybody. Yes, today we're going to be kind of continuing on from where we were yesterday, but taking what we did yesterday and thinking about how we can translate that into the next 12 months. And so we're moving into Breakout Group 3 for this morning's session. And just by way of introduction, I want to just give a little bit of time and talk to you about why we had this process and what we hope to accomplish with the work that's been done over the two breakout groups yesterday, moving into the next year. So as the regional center, it's our job to understand the changing landscape of food safety across the Northeast and use that understanding to make informed decisions on the growth of our programming and the work that NECAFS undertakes. And so it's our responsibility to improve and reflect the needs of our network. And so for those of you who've been involved in NECAFS since its formation in 2016 and in the planning ahead of that, hopefully you've seen these changes over our first 2 funding cycles. We were first funded by FDA, and then we were funded by USDA, and that funding is about to end at the end of August, and we are now getting ready to write our proposal for our next round of funding. And so therefore, again, it's time for us to build a proposal that is reflective and flexible and informed by all of your needs. And so first of all, I want to thank you all for taking the time to always be responsive to our evaluations and being candid in your conversations with us about your needs and expectations. So I always talk about the changing landscape, and for us, the big change this year was the start of on-farm inspections. And that gave us a perspective and input from our regulator community that we heard about yesterday and coming into our meeting. And so preparing for this year's meeting, the regulators from across our region were holding these planning meetings with NECAFS, and we really started to best understand how we could learn to incorporate their voice and those observations into our work, not only at the annual meeting, but as we put together our proposal for our next 3 years of programming. And so much of that discussion with the regulators has informed the work that NECAFS has been doing in planning and thinking around what will become an integrated communication framework, which is what we plan to talk about today. So specifically, what activities, the question that we've been asking ourselves is, what activities can and should NECAFS implement to establish a regular communication framework around research and education needs throughout the year that's taking into perspective all of those voices? And so here's what NECAFS is thinking might work. And we've started this process with the regulators on leading into our meeting. We collected the top challenges, and then we dedicated our breakout group yesterday to identify needs and barriers. And so next, we plan to distill and summarize that information into a summary report that gets written and shared. I'm using the word published in my slide, but I don't mean peer review publication. I just mean to present it out and share it with all of you in a written and professional format. And then we hope to host what we're just right now calling a research summit that brings together researchers, both university and government, along with regulators and educators to dig into the research questions identified and prioritized in your breakout groups. From there, we plan to share another written report that summarizes what is discussed at that research summit. And then NECAF's role in this, first, is to collect the information, communicate it across the network, and bring everyone together to facilitate the conversation. But in terms of activities, we also plan to take an active role in executing some of that work. First, completing literature reviews of existing published research. I mentioned in my presentation first thing yesterday morning that we recently hired Johanna Doran, who will lead this work, and we are excited to move forward with that after the meeting. We'll also plan to bring back our webinars that we used to host on a regular basis that will specifically address topics raised during these discussions. And so what the goal of the next breakout session will be is to ask all of you, this is what I have on this slide is basically two sections of a logic model that we plan to submit in our proposal for funding for our next 3 years. And so this would be the way that we have envisioned executing this collaborative communication framework around research and education, and be able to dig into those research and educational questions so that it's a more intentional and informed process that can both highlight research that exists and information that already exists, but also identify priority areas for new research and new work that needs to be done in order to help address the needs in our region. And so the next breakout group is really, we're asking you to look at these proposed activities within NECAFS and ask yourselves and let us know if this structure looks like a good approach to making that happen. How do you see yourself fitting into these activities? Are we missing something that would be really obvious to making this structure work better over the next 12 months? And so for us right now, it's really getting that feedback from you on this process as we inform our next proposal. And so, Chris, do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
No, I don't. Anybody have questions at this point?
Yeah, so are there questions? For us, this is important because we'd like to make sure that what we propose is actually going to be useful and used by all of you in our network. So any questions for clarification or?
Elizabeth, the grant would be a NIFA grant as well, and then what's the term of the cycle?
Yes, so it's a 3-year, it's again through the Food Safety Outreach Program, NIFA, and it's a 3-year, so it would begin in September of 2021 through 24.
Okay, thank you.
We would continue, obviously, the other types of things that NECAFS does that you're very familiar with, our annual meeting, the training support stipend program, the other ways that you all use NECAFS. This would just be a new addition to the work that we do, supporting that staff and supporting that work and making those things happen. Any other questions? Okay, great. If not, then we will go into our breakout groups. And again, this is just 10 breakout groups that are random, and just looking to get input from all of you on this. So thank you very much, and we'll head into our breakout groups now.
Well, good deal. Thanks for what was obviously a productive set of breakout sessions. I've been peeking at the various docs, and it looks like really helpful information. Thank you for giving that some thought. As Aaron and Michael and Andy alluded to, it's lunchtime, and your food delivery should be arriving at your door any moment. So please enjoy and dig in, and we will regroup at 1:30. Is there anything else we wanted to mention, Elizabeth?
No, I just wanted to say I've dropped the evaluation link into the chat box. You don't need to do it right now, but I just wanted to start making it accessible to people. You all know normally we fill this out with paper forms, but it's in a Google form now, so don't need to do it right now, but we do obviously appreciate your feedback. So just putting it there, but we'll put it in the chat later as well. And no, just see everybody back at 1:30.
And we'll be, as I understand it, we'll be back in this Zoom meeting at 1:30. And so you can either stay logged in, muted, videoed off, whatever you want, hang around and chat if you want, or leave and come back in with the same link. So,
Yep.
Everybody.